Okay, so we're starting the video. So I would like to introduce our speaker uh, for the day. Well, actually, we have two, but the topic, stormwater management and green infrastructure. And we have two speakers. Shannon Powell is the assistant city manager, and she's been with the city a little over a year. And she comes to us with a master's in city and regional planning. Shannon, we'd like to welcome you. And originally, our topic was good urban design, and water management, stormwater management is part of good urban design. So, Shannon, I'd like to turn it over to you if you want to unmute yourself. And welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. Frank called me, let's see, last maybe May and asked me to speak to the group in March. And when we were having that conversation, there was no way we ever imagined that we'd still be doing this in some digital format. And you guys weren't even doing Zoom. And if you told me I was going to be talking about stormwater, I would have said, what? So this has been quite a year on so many fronts. And and stormwater is certainly a place where we've made some significant strides towards getting our arms wrapped around what the problems are. And I'm just going to hit on I'm going to try to give you kind of an overview and kind of a background on what we've done and really set the stage. Who's going to do a much deeper dive into green infrastructure, in part because I think that green infrastructure is at least one part of the larger solution. And it happens, the city can do part of it, but it's also something you can do and you can be a part of. And I believe that green infrastructure fits nicely with so if Avondale was built on this idea of a garden city, then green infrastructure is an important component and maybe a modern interpretation of what it means to be just that, a garden city. So I also just want to acknowledge you guys in what you do. We can build buildings and places, but without people and the ways to connect and relationship, we don't have much of a community. So it's to your great credit that you pull the community together and you have your club, and that you not only are building relationships and community for Avondale, but you're also I appreciate those things, everything from the contributions on flowers to memorial wreaths and the many things that I probably don't even know that you do day in and day out. So for that, thank you. I also want to introduce my colleague, Carolyn Rader. She has joined us here today. Carolyn is helping me on a variety of different stormwater projects. And so I asked her just to join in. She is specifically handling or managing the project that we call the Northwoods Project. And the Northwoods Project, which is under design and is both what I would call a green space or open space project, as well as a stormwater, in that we're looking for a design that addresses stormwater and helps manage the water, protects those trees, but also makes it an oasis in a place that you can kind of walk through and enjoy. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's the area adjacent to the community club is the area we call the Northwoods Project. So that's under one of many projects that's underway, and I really appreciate Carolyn's leadership and help on that front. So with that, I'm just going to introduce a few slides, and let's see if I can go back to my ability to share my slides. Can you guys see this?
Yes, we
Frank?
can. Yes, we can.
Good. Well, as a starting point, you can, let's see if I can see it. As a starting point, you can see some of the issues that we're facing or that you're facing with stormwater. You probably know this as well as anybody, that we have aging infrastructure, aging infrastructure, stuff that's broken, insufficient infrastructure. And w and I haven't been with the city very long. I mean, I've been just slightly over a year, and it looks to me as if, I mean, part of what we were doing as a city was, dealing trying to deal with it on a site by site as on a site by site basis. We just were dealing with the problem as we saw it, but we didn't have a very good comprehensive understanding or look at um, how do we prioritize? What do we, it could be a bit overwhelming, quite frankly. It's also important to realize that the city of Avondale Estates we weren't always responsible for stormwater. This was something that DeKalb County dropped on us in 2004 at some level, and then has continued to drop more and more responsibility onto the city. And they handed us an aging infrastructure that they had not maintained themselves. And so it was interesting. Carolyn and I had a conversation with DeKalb County, uh, the person that's new to DeKalb County and leading their efforts. And as he was talking about the challenges in DeKalb County, it was a mirror image of what some of the things that we were encountering here in Avondale. And I don't think that's any great surprise, because they were maintaining and responsible for our stormwater up until not that long ago. On top of that, we've seen an increase in the level of state and federal requirements. And so there have been additional pressures and different. Uh, Meanwhile, our infrastructure is continuing to age, and we were continuing to get behind in how to handle this. And so, with that, we made a decision this past year to do this stormwater master plan, and to go in and understand where is all our inventory, make sure we had a complete inventory, and do a full assessment of what the conditions were, to get public input so we could understand, where you or those in the community were seeing issues, particularly around flooding, which is most of what we got, to evaluate those and rank those issues that had come about, to then develop 5 concept plans for the 5 worst issues, and then to develop short and long-term recommendations on how we could move forward. I think it is important in this to understand one of the things that we did is we looked at existing infrastructure. One of the things that came out of the plan was that there are places that have insufficient infrastructure. And so, while we may have some idea about where that is, where those are, the first step was, well, let's see if we can fix what we've got. Make sure we have an understanding of what those are. I think it's also, um, I don't know about you guys, but a year ago, I'm not sure I could tell you what a stormwater conveyance was. I certainly couldn't have told you that there was a problem with something of a corrugated pipe, or that pipes came in oval and round shapes, which apparently they do, for a variety of reasons. And so I wanted to at least show you some of the structures and the things that we are maintaining, and that when we did that inventory, we were looking for that. There were, just for perspective, there are 602 structures, 604 conveyances, and 15 basins that really define Avondale, to give you some perspective on the scope of the infrastructure. So again, the stormwater assets were ranked by priority. So there was a prioritization that was created, and by the way, with the assessment, we took a camera down. So we put a camera down and looked into the pipes so that we could tell what their condition was. And we found some in decent shape. We found some in terrible shape, and we found some that were completely blocked. And so the first step and most immediate step we did was to clear the ones to go in and clear, like the top 5 worst ones that were blocked. we're now moving forward with clearing all of the ones that are blocked because we couldn't tell what was going on. And we've developed 5 concept plans to address issues throughout the area. And if you go onto our website, you can pull up the plans and you can see the map that's shown here. And if you're interested in a particular conveyance or a particular structure, you can see how it ranked and what how it ranked and maybe an understanding of, well, you can understand what they saw when they were in the field. And then also, I'm not going to go into the 5 concept plans today, but those are also available on the website if you're interested in more detail as to what those plans are. So the big takeaways um, were, the solutions seem obvious: repair and replace existing, add new infrastructure, and manage water on site. The the thing that was really important for me to learn and understand, and while I think it's maybe obvious when I say it out loud, it wasn't entirely obvious to me starting this process, which is one, it's really disruptive when we start repairing and replacing, or certainly when we add new. It is not easy. We disrupt trees. I mean, it's a big deal. And so, and it's and particularly disruptive when we start thinking about where we're going to add new infrastructure or new pipes. And I mean, for those of you that might know the project that we just finished over at Kensington, about it, well, yeah, I guess that would be about a year ago. We added a new detention area there. I mean, it required easements, and I mean, it's a big deal. And so I think that that's important for us to keep in mind as we look at how do we move forward. And the second thing is just I'm not sure I really it processed for me the unanticipated consequences. So it seems, well, we just need to go in and make that pipe bigger, and then it'll carry more water. Well, except for if you make that pipe bigger, then there's a very good chance that what we're really doing is just pushing the problem downstream, or pushing it to your neighbor, or to the next street over, or the next community over. So we haven't really dealt with our issue, and it was expensive. So it's costly, so we have to think, um, about what our priorities are and how do we fix this and, make it, the first 5 that we've identified, we're gonna end up spending all the money that we've got in the stormwater funds to do that. And then we're going to have to start thinking about how much money is available, and what we do, to where we get the money to fix other issues and problems. So I do think that is important. And then the final one, manage water on site. We can do that in some public ways. And there's certainly examples of how we can do it. But we really need the community to help us to be able to do that. And it requires community buy-in to do that, which is one of the reasons I'm so grateful that you invited us to speak today, because of all the people in the community that are most likely to be able to do this and do it well and do it beautifully, it's you. You can do it in your own yard. You can be the examples. And I think I'm really hoping that Brandy's going to be able to give you a visual and help you inspire you in ways, that you can really be a part of this community and part of the solution that helps us to figure out how to um, w- deal with it going forward. And then in terms of our next steps, we're going to, I mentioned the cleaning out the clogs. We're going to continue to do that. We're going to fix the 5 worst problems. We're going to develop a model, a hydrologic model that allows us to test different solutions so that we're not having those intended consequences. We're going to establish a better, what I call, emergency response action. So that if there are emergency plans, we have somebody on call, we can call on them, we can get it done quickly. Right now, we have to get bids. I mean, there's just a whole process around it. And so we're hoping to be a little more ahead of the game on some of those. We need to evaluate budgets and fees, and then we need to manage water on site. And by the way, this is coming up. This idea of green infrastructure came out of this plan, but it's come out a lot of things. I'm hearing it in the zoning code when people start talking about too much impervious surfaces. I'm hearing it from the state, from the EPD, when we go to complete our what's called our MS4 reports on how important it is for us to have these kinds of discussions at the community level and begin to be leaders in this on this front. And give you a few snapshots. One of what green infrastructure might look like and how it really can be beautiful. What it does again is it helps us to manage that water on site. There are communities around the country that have been leading on this front, and there's so many different ways in which it can be imagined. We're thinking about that on our end at the city, and what can we do within our own right of ways, in the places that we have influence and control. But I wanted you to get a picture of what that might look like, and I'm really gonna hand this over to Brandy, who's gonna, I think, pick this up, and this is her area of expertise across the board, and, um, and I think you'll enjoy hearing from her more specifically about how this manifests itself in our communities.
Shannon, before I introduce Brandy, could you address one question where it came from Kathy Caballero? Please explain how to manage water on site. So are we talking about residential sites or
We we
what?
could that could mean, so the answer to the first question is where. It could be, again, like as you see in this one image here, that's what I call the furniture zone. I think it's kind of more akin to I think verge would be the way you defined it. So you could manage water within the public right of way, such as this one, or it could be done in a residential community, or at a single family home, see reflected in the rain barrels above, or in the single family house below with the garden, or in the pavers. So it's not necessarily whether it's private or public. It can be either. It
Okay.
can be either. And so what does it mean? It means rain barrels. It means gardens that are kind of designed to collect water. It means pavers that can absorb water as opposed to just allowing it to, flow directly into the gutters. And so, I think Brandy will help. I mean, this is kind of what I think she's going to help really paint a stronger picture about.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And if you could stop sharing, and then I'll introduce Brandy. Uh, so our second speaker, what am I saying? Our second speaker is Brandy Hall, and she's a founder and managing director of Shades of Green Permaculture. So welcome, Brandy. And if you can unmute yourself, and then we'll turn it over to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great. Thank you so much, Frank. And thank you, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. So yeah, I'm going to take over and talk about the things specifically that we can do in our own yards. Like one of the points that Shannon made is that managing water on site is a really big part of the strategy. And given how many spaces are privately owned, I think that's a really huge leverage point. And so I want to talk a little bit today about what it means to manage water as a resource, and how that looks in a residential type of project. So I've had some issues with my connectivity recently, so I'm going to turn my video off while I share my screen just to make sure that it streams properly. And if you could just let me know, Frank, that it is working.
I will.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So your video's off.
Okay, great. And I'm pulling
and
up.
We're seeing your screen.
Play.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Let me play this. Perfect. Okay, everybody sees that?
Yeah. What? Well, I'll answer for them. Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. I can't see my mouse anymore. Okay, well, that's fine. Actually, one second. I'm going to try to hide the side thing there. Okay, there we go. Let me go back into full screen. Okay, so like Frank mentioned, my name's Brandy Hall, and I'm the founder and managing director of Shades of Green Permaculture. We're based here in Avondale Estates, actually. And so I'm going to be talking about green infrastructure and also the positive impact that our gardens can have on some of the regional and global challenges that we face, specifically as it relates to stormwater management. So I'm going to show you some common water management practices that undermine sustainability, and also what we can do to transform landscapes into our eco-paradises, as we like to call them. So just to take a couple minutes to introduce myself really quickly. So we're a regenerative design, installation, and education company based here in Avondale. And I come from a long line of builders and growers. I earned my general contractor's license when I was 21, and I've studied as a stonemason, I've farmed, I've run nonprofits, and generally just consider myself a lifelong student. I'm really passionate specifically about leading a purpose-driven business as a force for good. So that's something that really occupies a lot of my time and thought these days. And also here on the left is my daughter, Zephyr. And on the right is our little family at our house in Pine Lake. That's my husband, Aaron. She's really feisty and he's really kind, and we love gardening and all of the things. That's me in the middle. I also serve on city council in Pine Lake where I live. So I think that's a kind of a unique position to be able to see both from the municipal side, what it means to manage stormwater, and then from the residential and gardening side, what it means to manage. So I hope to bring some of that in our conversation today. So Shades of Green has worked on over 1,000 projects over the past decade, from consultation through design, through installation and caretaking. So we have a staff of about 16 people. We just went through another round of hiring recently because everybody's doing home renovation projects right now, it seems, which is wonderful. And most importantly, what I want to convey is that no garden is too small to make an impact. In fact, what we've determined is that the impact adds up really quickly. So in 2019, we started tallying up the impact that we're having working with clients, so just our clients. And we work on roughly 100 to 150 projects per year, ranging from tiny yards to large farms and developments. And when we added up that cumulative impact that our clients are having, in just 1 year, we realized that it's really big. So approximately 500 acres were transitioned to organic management. Over 150,000 native medicinal plants were planted. 4,500 trees were planted. 40,000 food producing plants were planted, and over 11.5 million gallons of water replenished our groundwater and aquifers. So after working with a lot of clients, as I've kind of talked about, and lots of different types of projects, I've come to think and know something is true, that it's possible to have a life-giving and reciprocal relationship with the land that supports us, even if we're in an urban or suburban context, by creating gorgeous spaces that build health, that don't undermine it. And we have the tools to address the climate crisis in our own yards because, as you see, small solutions add up to big impact. So just reiterating that no matter the size, every garden can have a positive impact. And that's something that we kind of drill a lot at Shades of Green. So for this presentation, we're going to focus on a fraction of the solutions that can help address climate change, and specifically the ones that relate to residential scale water management, which is the first pillar of what we call the 3 pillars of a regenerative landscape. So that pillar is to manage water as a resource so that we can rehydrate soils, reduce irrigation, and restore the water cycle. So that begs the question, before we can talk about the solutions, let's understand some of the issues. So how is water conventionally managed? Here's a far too common sight, and frankly, it's not in a lot of ways. So what happens to all the rain? We get on average 50, 53 inches a year. Some years, like last year, we had over 70 inches of rain. So what happens to all of it? Because we're also really familiar with drought in, our 12 weeks in the summer where it's really hot and no rain. So building conventions typically approach water as a nuisance. That's the lens that most building conventions are looking at water. And the primary objective from that perspective is to get the water away. So then water goes into the stormwater system as runoff from impervious surfaces. And then we combine that with removing trees, which is really typical to development, and directing all of our runoff to streams instead of the soil. And that leads to something known as the heat island effect, which then leads to desertification over time. So more heat equals less rain. So that's why we really have this sort of drought and flood continuum that we're seeing be more defined as the years pass. And so what about our water usage? According to NASA, between 50 and 75% of residential water consumption in the US is for watering lawns alone, which is a huge amount. 2/3 more water is used to irrigate lawns than all cropland combined in the United States, according to the EPA. And so that's just for outdoor use. That doesn't even talk about indoor potable use. So then the question becomes, how do we restore a broken water cycle? And I want to show you a quick video. And I have it embedded here, so I think that it's going to work. Nope. Okay, I wasn't sure. Oh, there it is. Okay, it is working.
Brandy, does it have audio or no?
Oh, yes, it does. Normally it does it. Maybe if I take out, I'm going to take out my headphones and see. Apologies. Let me see if I can get it without my headphones here. That should work. 1 second. Always with the tech. Is that better?
That did it.
Great.
Healthy Water Cycle, Healthy Gardens by Shades of Green Permaculture. In the city, it's easy to underestimate the volume of rain that comes from the sky. For example, a 1-inch rainfall on 1,000 square feet produces 600 gallons of water and 27,000 gallons of water on 1 acre. This ends up being an enormous amount of water. 2.3 billion gallons in a 1-inch rain in the city of Atlanta. 80% of this water lands on hardscapes, roofs, parking lots, and roads, and flows across the surface of the ground through the sewers and stormwater infrastructure, to rivers, and ultimately to the sea. This phenomena causes flash flooding because all of the water flows above ground toward rivers, swelling and overflowing their banks. And drought, because water that runs off too quickly doesn't replenish moisture in the soil. In a forest, rain forms a mist as it's broken up by plant leaves as it falls from the sky. The mist falls slowly, and 80% of the water sinks into the soft, leaf litter covered ground. Forest soils store massive amounts of water, making it available to trees throughout the year. A healthy alternative. Rain gardens concentrate water from your downspouts into basins in your yard, which allows infiltration into the ground. This reduces runoff, flash flooding, drought, and city water costs. Create an ecology. A hydrated soil is a healthy soil. Healthy soil grows healthy plants. Healthy plants create healthy yards and gardens, which help create healthy ecosystems. Pollinators, butterflies, beetles, songbirds, and bees Fruit trees, nut trees, berry bushes, cut flowers, perennial vegetables, culinary and medicinal herbs. Create an ecology that nature thrives in for your family and your friends. Use that water. Now that's landscaping that's smarter. For more information,
Great. Let me put my headphones back in here. And are you able to hear me again?
Yes.
Wonderful. So then what it comes down to, this is a mantra that we repeat a lot when we're talking about water management. The alternatives to the problems that I've sort of illustrated quickly is to slow it, sink it, and spread it. And this is something that Brad Lancaster, who wrote Rainwater Harvesting for the Drylands and Beyond, I think is the name of his book, really wonderful teacher in this regard. This is something that he says a lot, and we've sort of adopted it. So I want to show you some alternatives and what that would mean to slow it, sink it, and spread it. So working smarter, not harder, that's an adage I think that we're all familiar with. This means reducing the need to irrigate by choosing the appropriate plants. So choosing plants that are really well adapted to gardens conditions, set them up to thrive without costly irrigation. And I'm sure that's something y'all are very familiar with, being the garden club. And then directing stormwater strategically through the yard to hydrate soils. So building the soil's capacity to hold and store water helps to mitigate the effects of drought and flood. And infiltrating water helps keeps forests and ecosystems intact. And that ultimately recharges aquifers and regulates the extremes of drought and flood. So when water is managed as a resource, the landscape as a whole can withstand drought and flood and is more resilient. And we can reduce irrigation by planting at the appropriate time of year, planting smaller plants so that they're able to establish without as many inputs, by maintaining a ground cover to retain soil moisture, by watering more deeply and more infrequently, which encourages deeper root growth, and then also using tongue twister, using rainwater preferentially, and then directing the overflow from maybe cisterns like it showed in the video to where it's useful and can infiltrate during heavy rains. So a typical system that we install, I'm going to go through that here very quickly. We can spread and sink water by building rain gardens, by digging swales on contour, which is a technique for slowing water as it's coming down a slope and allowing to sink into the soil. And then also diversion swales, which direct water from an area where it may not be useful to an area where it can infiltrate on your site. So these are some techniques that we use quite a bit to just move water strategically through the landscape. So here's a typical permaculture landscape that we install. We usually begin by tapping downspouts. Like we saw in the video, the cistern captures the roof water. So we tap the downspouts and we route those to an above ground tank. And then from there, the overflow is directed to rain gardens via underground pipes. And this can also be constructed by just taking the downspouts and routing them to rain gardens and bypassing the cistern, but this is kind of how the whole thing would work together. And then as each rain garden fills, they overflow one to the next, and the rain gardens drain into the surrounding soils and they make the water available to plants where they need it. And I mentioned Rainwater Harvesting for the Drylands and Beyond, the Brad Lancaster book. And I want to talk a little bit about a study that he cites in that book. So in 1992, the US Army Corps of Engineers proposed spending $500 million to increase the capacity of the LA River. And the LA River is the big concrete channel that you see in like drag racing movies a lot, and it's their primary stormwater infrastructure. So a bunch of other agencies were separately looking to update their infrastructure, and it was just generally a really disjointed and uncoordinated program that totaled over $20 billion. And with the rate of the current rate of development happening in LA, they suspected that this would be a temporary solution, so lasting 20 years or less. which is a lot of money to spend for something that's going to last for 20 years. And so there was an organization that caught wind of this and organized a group of citizens called Tree People, and they proposed something else. So they built a trial landscape that could capture, clean, and store all the rainwater that fell on a property in a 100-year flood event. So a 100-year flood event in LA was about 4,000 gallons of water that they led a public demonstration for officials, and they unleashed 4,000 gallons of water into a landscape in less than 10 minutes, simulating that 100-year flood event. And they found that it would be the same impact to manage a 100-year flood event without expanding any of the city stormwater infrastructure. And that could be achieved if only 20 to 40% of the watershed's 8,000 homes implemented the techniques that they demonstrated, which would be just a fraction of the cost. And so the officials, obviously, as I am, were really amazed. And they formed an organization called the Sun Valley Watershed Project, which is still in existence. And it's a really interesting website if you take a look at it, the Sun Valley Watershed Project. So while water management is the first pillar of a regenerative landscape, I mentioned 3 pillars at the beginning of this. And water management strategies are inextricably linked to how we also manage and build diverse plant communities and soil fertility. And these 3 things work together. And I want to show you how in a real life example. So here are some photos. This is a planting plan and a water detail for a standard residential site that we did in Decatur a few years ago. So this is the planting plan on the left and features a lot of native and useful perennials and trees and shrubs, and the water plan on the right. And essentially what's happening, the downspouts that are on the corners marked by those little dark blue circles on the right-hand side of the house, they're routed. We tapped those downspouts and routed them to the front. First, we routed them actually to 2 500-gallon cisterns, and then those overflow to the front rain gardens. So those are kind of the little irregular blob shapes in the top of the water plan there. And then we allow those to infiltrate, and they eventually run off into the sidewalks, which is part of the stormwater infrastructure. And then the red line is the irrigation that's fed from the rainwater tanks. So they have some vegetable gardens in the backyard where the red line goes to. So those go to yard hydrants. There's also one that we ended up putting up in the front yard for establishment irrigation. And then we've got some earthworks. So we have a rain garden in the backyard that's adjacent to the red line there, kind of along the driveway. And that was a low spot that we created essentially so that the water from the driveway would have somewhere to go, because what was happening is it was just sort of backing up into their crawl space, or into their garage rather. And then we also, the like long skinny blue line at the bottom of the water plan there is a diversion swale. So we took water that was running off of the driveway and we diverted it and then turned it onto contour, which means perpendicular to the slope, and allowed the water to infiltrate. So it was kind of catching what was coming down the driveway before going into the low spot there. And so I'm going to show you a few photos of this. So these are the before conditions. As you can see, they're houses that were newly constructed. It was a lot of cut and fill. So it had been graded so they would have a shared driveway in the backyard there, kind of on the picture on the right where I'm standing is the shared drive. And then it's a lot of lawn in between. And lawn the runoff coefficient is what it's called, which is how much water runs off of turf when it's mown below 6 inches, is up to 90% of the water that hits it can run off. So it doesn't do much for infiltration. So that was compounding some of the water issues that this particular site was having. And then that center photo, you can see there's a lot of clay in the foreground. And what was happening is these downspouts were all routed. The backyard is the low spot. And the front yard is the high spot. And all of these downspouts were routed into the backyard into a flow well. It was essentially just a big gravel pit, which is a really standard building convention to manage the first inch of rain. And we encounter these a lot. And it's still approaching water management from the perspective that it's a nuisance, not something that's particularly useful in the landscape. And this particular one was just completely undersized for the amount of water that was coming off of the roof. So what was happening is they had this little air vent on that line. You can see right in the center, right by the retaining wall, that little T circle where the downspout meets the PVC. And it was basically backing up and then shooting out of that coupling and then undermining the retaining wall and flooding into, you can see all the clay in the foreground of that photo in front of me. And it was just creating a big muddy clay mess, and that was backing up into their garage. And then on the far left, you can see there's the hillside that comes down from the street where the cars are parked and goes down the hill. And then there's the driveway, which is the low spot. And you can see kind of on the right-hand side of the driveway, there's some staining from the clay. And that's really the low spot of all of these properties. And so the water didn't really have anywhere to go because a lot of it was running off. And so that's where we created a rain garden just to artificially create a low spot, a lower spot, and allow the water to infiltrate down. And so here are some photos. That center photo on the bottom is the picture of the rain garden adjacent to the driveway. And then that is allowing the water to percolate into the soil at that point, and is planted with lots of native and medicinal plants. And then she also the client threw in some other annuals in there. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the rainwater tanks, and then those overflow actually to the front yard. Even though the site is sloping toward the backyard, we were able to achieve gravity feeding to the front by setting an overflow on those tanks higher than the grade level at the front yard. So they overflow into the rain garden, which is pictured in the center top photo. That's a rain garden covered with St. John's wort, and there it is again on the left. And then there's another one on the other side, but that's kind of how we worked with the water in that situation. And then plants include tons of native and medicinal and edible species. So we've got things like strawberry, which is on the left, and then evergreen hedgerow of pineapple guava, which is the center top photo. That's its flower, but it's an incredibly delicious evergreen fruit and also does well in the shade. So it's a plant that we use pretty regularly on the edible side of things. Then obviously there's milkweed there, which is super beneficial for monarch butterfly populations in the center bottom. And then we've got apple trees and figs and pomegranates and all kinds of fruiting trees and shrubs throughout the site. And then the soil, one of our primary objectives in the site was to build the soil's capacity to hold the water that we were then directing toward it. So you can see it went from like really rich, very little organic matter, very dense clay, to the type of soil that you see in the picture there on the left underneath the strawberries, which is just really fluffy and lots of humus and topsoil. The center picture is the pineapple guava hedgerow. They wanted to plant it along the sidewalk so that they would have a little bit of privacy, but then also have something for their neighbors to enjoy as they're walking by. And then the strawberries are actually beneath that pineapple guava hedgerow there in that center photo. And then the photo on the right is the diversion swale that's capturing the water coming down the driveway. And then it turns on contour, like I mentioned. And that's planted with liatris and mountain mint and river oats and a couple of different types of bee balm, and I believe there's milkweed in that, and muley grass and some other native grasses. So it's lots of medicinal and native plants on that hillside. That also planting those types of species that tend to have deeper root systems allows for more water infiltration. So our goal, again, was just to create lots of planting space that had really rich soil and deep roots to be able to infiltrate the water so that it wasn't a nuisance, but was useful throughout the site. So I'm going to end with one of my favorite quotes. I was going to play another video, but I don't know that, I think it's about 10 minutes long. So I think I'm going to skip that. It was just a site walk through that particular site that I just mentioned.
Yeah, Brandy, we're kind of running out of time, and we just allow for questions.
Perfect.
So
yeah. So this is a really great quote that I love and really informs a lot of our work, which is to change something, build a new model that makes the old model obsolete, by Buckminster Fuller. So I think of, managing water as a resource and building water retention landscapes as a really key piece of that, making the old model obsolete. So thank you so much for your time. I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah. Are there any specific questions for Brandy right now? I don't see any there were some comments coming through the chat box, but no specific questions. We have a couple of minutes before our membership meeting should start. Like last month's presentation, I'm going to have to be reviewing this one numerous times to grasp everything. But Brandy, thank you so much. And so if there's no questions, I'm sorry, Kathy.
Yeah, am I unmuted? I should be.
No, you're unmuted.
Okay. Brandy, do you have any ways that we as homeowners can help our stormwater and sewer system without having to do a complete yard remake? That was pretty intense project there. Is there something smaller scale that you recommend for people?
Yes.
In neighborhoods such as ours, if you could probably
yes, so you're right.
Have a couple of minutes to go over that. I think that's equally important.
Great. Yeah, you're right. That was a complete overhaul of a sort of builder grade landscape. But from a water management perspective, creating small rain gardens, so routing one downspout into a rain garden and allowing it to first infiltrate before it continues down the trail where it was going, is a really easy and not very expensive thing that you can do. And you can make those. We use something that created called a rainwater calculator, which basically you can play with the depths and the surface area of a rain garden to see how much water you're infiltrating. But that's a really kind of simple solution that I think most homes could do.
All right. Any other questions? Well, I wanted to thank all of our speakers today, Shannon, Brandy, and Carolyn. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your time with us today. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And Madam President, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, you guys, I just want to, I think we're going to step out, but I want to thank you guys for having us and thank Brandy. What a beautiful presentation and what an asset you are to have in our community. I'm sure that I'm responding or reflecting what others feel and think. I'm as a city person, I'm going to challenge you guys. I think Brandy laid it out about as well as you could, how you can really make a difference in this community. And I kind of wrap it back around it. What, as gardeners, you can be true leaders, and we're going to be creating some sort of a green infrastructure committee or action group. We're not exactly sure what it looks like, but I'd love for you guys to be a part of that. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye and thank you and all the best.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so
Thanks
much
for having me. Bye.
And Carolyn, I just saw chat. Thank you for attending, and I hope we will see you more of a presence in the future. Okay, welcome everybody. I thought that was a great program. There's so much that we can do as citizens, and as y'all know, I'm an avid walker. If you can just, when you're out and you see all that debris on top of our storm grates, just take a minute to clear that off and put it in a pile where it's not going to go right back in. That's a tremendous help, because then the water can go down and we don't flood our streets. It doesn't seem like it's much, but it helps. So anyway, welcome and call to order. Linda is going to do our invocation for us. Linda Mast, if she's here.
I'm here.
Yeah, okay.
This is
please take
very short, so you got to pay attention. Some people come into our lives and quickly go away. Some people stay for a while, leaving footprints on our hearts. It is important to remember the lives of others that we enter. No matter how long we stay, leave a soft, loving imprint on their hearts.
Oh, that's nice. Very nice. And that leads me to our next sort of sad thing. I'm sure that y'all are aware, but we lost Pat Maddox a couple of weeks ago. She was a long-term Avondale resident, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of her. She had joined our club after her retirement, and she was always so enthusiastic and such a bright and smiling face. She'll be greatly. She was taken too soon, and as Linda said, short steps. But I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of it. And the family, last I talked to Dave, they're not sure what they're going to do, but I'm sure something in the summer will be prepared. So please keep them in your thoughts. You got the Avondale, you've got the minutes for the February general membership meeting was sent out. I'd like to have somebody make a motion to either review those or waive them if there are no corrections.
I move to waive.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
I saw somebody's hand. Okay, good job. Thank you. The committee reports. We're going to have a few committee reports that are live today because we just have a lot going on, believe it or not. But I did give you I sent out some summaries. So I hope you read those, and then we have some adjunct reports. I just got a text from Peggy asking if she could present the youth committee first because she has another meeting that she has to attend. So Peggy's stepping in for Carolyn. So Peg, you want to go for youth, and then I have something to add right after you finish, okay?
This is a report on the Avondale Elementary School project. Landscaping. We have an initial landscape plan from Plants Landscaping Incorporated. They are pricing the plants now, and we hope to have an install date soon. Phase 1 of ordering the bricks is complete, and we have 132 bricks as of right now. Phase 2 will continue online through April 15th. Information on how to order online will be coming soon. There were 2 nice articles in Garden Gate about our project. Welcome to Avondale Estates Facebook page has a video about the garden clubs and what the Arts Alliance has done to help with this project. What we need now are books on gardening and nature for the little library, someone to sandblast or pressure wash the blue wrought iron benches in front of the school, and volunteers who are willing to lay some of these bricks as we receive the order. If you have any questions, call Carolyn. That's it. And thank you for letting me go first. I've got a budget meeting with the next club. See y'all later. I'm signing off.
Bye. Thank you for coming, and thank you for filling in for Carolyn. I wanted to mention that Peggy mentioned briefly Garden Gateways. Can y'all see that? You should have received it.
We did.
This week or the end of last week. There is the article in there is talking about Avondale Estates and Avon Garden Club's collaboration. So this is kind of unusual for 2 garden clubs to collaborate on a project like that. But I wanted to point this out. And I also, and this was written by our publicity person, Bruce Johnston. And so we're thrilled that it got in there. And I had attached a very in-depth article that was published in the City e-Blast. And I think if you could take the time to read that, you will find out a lot about that project. It has some links that will lead you to different aspects of it. It's really moving strongly, and I just wanted to bring it up and thank Bruce. She has been very diligent about trying to get stuff out to the various garden clubs, to the various garden publications. So I appreciate that. We'll next move to our budget report. Miss Sue Sneed, you're here. I see you.
Good morning, everyone.
You ready?
I am ready. Probably seen a copy of the report. I'll just go over it quickly. We had income of $3,090. That was due to collection of dues as well as collection of money for the bricks that Peggy was just talking about. And we also had a youth donation of $50. So we had an income of $3,090. We have a current balance of $11,093.65. At the time the report was submitted on Sunday, we had 40 paid members. For next season, we now are up to 48. Thank you to everyone who has paid your dues. I've particularly enjoyed the people that have come to my front door that I've been able to see and have at least a brief conversation with in person. And also we used Venmo for the first time this year, and 25% of our members so far have used Venmo. So that's been very easy and efficient. I have reported to the IRS that we are a nonprofit organization still after all these years. That's an annual update that we have to do every year to keep our nonprofit status. And if you haven't paid your dues and want to be a member for next year, please get your dues in as soon as possible. We're going to be ready to pay our Georgia Garden Club dues here shortly. And we do have the money to cover it, but it'd be great to get everybody's dues in so we're ready to go this summer with our yearbook as well. So that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, feel free to call me or email me, and I'll be happy to answer what I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. I do want to add that we look like we're pretty flush now because Sue, our garden club, agreed to collect the money for the bricks, but it's a pass-through, which Sue hasn't written the check for the bricks yet. So we may look like we're doing well, and we are doing well, but we're going to lose a big chunk of that money. So don't be surprised in next month or two when you see that chunk disappear. We're just sort of acting as a pass-through for that amount. Next report is going to be a dual combination from Frank and Mary Lou talking about our April program. Take it away, guys.
Great. Well, as our textbook or our annual shows that our first vice president will be the presenter in April. So Mary Lou, would you like to take it over about what you're planning and some of the ideas?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Next month, I'll be doing a program on the art of expressing sentiment through flowers and a little history on the Tussie Mussy. And originally, this was going to be a hands-on program. And I would like to continue that. So what my plan was is that we're going to be making little small Tussie Mussies with sending a message. And what I was hoping to do is put some little kits together that could be picked up to at my house a day or two before our next meeting, so that you could, along with me, make a little Tussie Mussy. You would have all the equipment, the flowers and the little things that you need. So in order to do that efficiently, I want you to look for an email or some kind of contact from me or Frank about mid-month. And I'm going to ask you to make a reservation to order one of these little kits, so I don't make too many or make too few. And then I'll direct you as to when you can pick those up so that we can all have a good time and maybe make something together. Anything else, Frank?
No, I think that's a great plan. We can coordinate it mid-month.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this at the executive board meeting last night, and everybody was very excited. So I hope we can do this. And it's a lot of work on Mary Lou's part. So if you feel like you're comfortable helping her, either sitting in her front yard the day of distribution or maybe running around collecting some of this stuff, give her a call. I think we have one volunteer already. So it will be fun. It will be good. Give her, contact one of us to do that. Frank, you're going to talk next about our April field trip.
Yes, yes, we have one planned for April the 14th for the Carter Center Gardens. Now this is a guided tour. Everything would be outside. So I haven't touched base with them in a couple of months, but we would like to poll you right now to see how many of you would be comfortable in doing this. So if it's okay, I'm sorry, Bev. Yes, you have a question?
No, just wanted to say, I think it's a great idea.
Okay, great. Well, let me poll everybody. So then I'll send out a poll. Okay, here we go. Let me launch this poll just to see how many of you guys are interested. So will you consider attending the outdoor guided tour? And carpooling and lunch would not be offered. Those two things, I don't think we could pursue at this time. So let me say we have 24 people on the call and 15 of you have said yes. 17, it's keep going up. I'll let it run for a little bit longer. Well, that's about everybody. So it looks like, I mean, so we could have a nice group. Yeah, if 17 people or so could attend, and maybe the people, other members who are not on the call today could attend as well. So thank you for that. Great. So yeah, well, I'll pursue and I'll contact the Carter Center first of next week and see if they still have someone who could give us a guided tour and any other things that could affect our thing. So, all right. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. That I'm enthusiastic to have that number say that they'd be comfortable doing this. It's a beautiful center. Michelle is now going to talk to us a little bit about celebration of Earth Day discussion, and I may jump in there. We talked earlier today. We've sort of modified our strategy a little bit, but Michelle, you want to fill us in on that?
Yeah, this is sort of a sudden thing. I got an email yesterday from Tracy Trenadu, who most everyone knows from the neighborhood. She's been here for a long time and been in both garden clubs at one point or another. And she is trying to put together an Earth Day celebration. And what she is asking for is for people to just let everyone know, oh, I have a bird garden in the back, or I have a certified habitat or native plant garden or specimen tree, anything like that. And she wants to put together a map for a walking tour where people could walk around. They would not be going in anyone's yards to look at this stuff, just to know, what everyone else is doing, which might spur other people to do the same. What I'm asking for today, and Kathy, jump in if I'm leaving things out, which I probably am.
You're okay
We're looking
so far.
Thanks. We're looking for somebody in our group to take this on for the group. And it's a totally passive activity. All you would be doing, you wonderful person who's going to volunteer, would be to collect the information from members. And when you've collected that, to just give all that information to Tracy. That's all there is to it. And we're just looking for a wonderful volunteer today to do that. And if that's you, contact me and copy Kathy Kingsbury on the email. And we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Or raise your hand now. How about that?
Even better.
Bev?
I'll take it
Bev,
on.
you're willing to do that? Yeah, okay. Well, we have 2 volunteers.
Good.
Or
They might be
Bev,
good.
did you have a question?
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I will send you Tracy's information and maybe you two can powwow about how you want to reach out to the membership. And it really is passive and it's going to be a short-term project. Michelle, Earth Day is April 19th.
April 22nd.
22nd. Well, it's going to be longer term than I thought. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's basically just finding out if we have members that have fall into any of these categories, if they're willing to have their name added, and we'll share that with Tracy. And then Tracy is going to be doing all the contact and legwork at this point. She may need some help, but she really just needed somebody to act as sort of a filter, and that's what we are. So great. I appreciate that. Any other questions?
Can I add something? Not really to do with that, but just sort of a add on to the school project. And I'll be really quick. I was in contact with Ernie Alquist over the weekend, and I know that he and Louis Boline are building the little free library within a couple of days, and I will be painting that and decorating it. So that part of the project is on its way, you know, hopefully in a couple of weeks, and we'll be filling it up with books. So thank you.
Okay. Connie, you want to make your Garden of the Month announcement?
Sure. Hold on. I had it here. Okay, our Garden of the Month this month is 112 Clarendon Avenue. It's the long split level at the corner of Wilshire and Clarendon, which I would have thought that the address would have been Wilshire, but it's Clarendon. So it's 112 Clarendon Avenue. It's the home of Annie Fraser and Jen Horvath. And I'm sure, you know, that's kind of a well-traveled area, so I'm sure y'all watch the different developments there, but it's really quite lovely. And anyway, and I'd just also, of course, like to, without trying not to say too much without crying, that, you know, Pat Maddox was on our committee. So difficult. And I would like to say one other little thing, just anybody can text me, email me, call me, whatever, with any comments. Margaret and I and Ann Kerner and Sally Walker were looking into, there's a program called Free Fridge, and they have a refrigerator that you can drop off food and people can pick up food whenever they want. And then they have a dry goods beside it. They had a kickoff on Sunday in Clarkston. They're opening one at Refuge Coffee, which that would be the closest one to us right now, I think. So if people would want to drop off, that's a good location. We also were talking about possibly putting one up at the church. We're in talks with the church. It would not be with Free Fridge. It would be on our own because she said she just doesn't have the capacity right now. So we're talking to the school and, you know, just kind of in the church and trying to get an idea of the feasibility of this program. So, you know, you can call me, email me, or text me, or any of the other three people with your comments about whether you think it's a good idea, the location, and also whether, you know, people that would be willing to participate in donating. So.
Thank you, Connie. Yeah, if you get me some information, I'll send it out to the garden club. I remember seeing it advertised someplace or mentioned. I just can't remember where.
If any of you are friends with Katie Abel on Facebook, she's always posting and she gets different things. And so I'll just warn you, on the Free Fridge, she has colorful language, but we would best be using her model, but she's pretty incredible. She started this, she's young, she looks like she's still in her 20s, but she only started in July, so this past year. So she's done an incredible job. So anyway, but we would just be following her model. We would not be actually part of that organization. So, but I will send you
well, yeah, and next time I send something out, I'll include it. Now we get to hear from Mary Lou, who was the chairman of our nominating committee, and I think she has some information to share with us.
Yes, I do. And first of all, I apologize. I'm about to announce the slate for the upcoming year. And since I appear on the slate, I was supposed to get someone else to read this, but I didn't, that was not clear to me. So please, I apologize for that oversight. So I'm going to read the slate. The communications secretary position is to be announced in the future. Because of our new changing technology, we're having to reframe that position a little bit. So that position will not be here right now, but it will be there in the future. So drum roll, please. I would like to present the slate of the executive board members for 2021 through 2022. President, Kathy Kingsbury. First vice president, myself. Second vice president and director of programs, Frank Mullins. Treasurer, Sue Sneed. Recording secretary, Joy Cole. And parliamentarian, Michelle Spears. That is our slate for next year. And over to you, Kathy.
I'm unmuted. Kathy lost her contact, so she's here with me.
Okay, I'm leaning behind Frank because thank you very much, Mary Lou and the nominating committee. We really appreciate her effort, and welcome aboard, Joy. Do I have a motion to accept this slate? Okay, do I have a second? Lots of seconds. Thank you. So we will make a motion to approve this slate. All in favor say aye or raise your hand. Ms. Parliamentarian, do we have enough votes? I think we've lost her. She's giving me the thumbs up. Okay. Thank you very much. And we look forward to working with everybody in the upcoming year. So thanks. And a big thank you for Christy Brown for serving as our recording secretary for the past couple of years. She has done a great job, and she's got that system down. So you're good to go, Joy. Thanks a lot. So I'm shotting from Frank's computer because my system shut down for some reason. So I have a couple of announcements. Installation. The board, Frank's going to send out another polling question, so I'm going to be leaning over his shoulder. The board is still trying to decide how to move forward with the installation of the new officers. So Frank's going to post a little polling question again. We love our polling questions, in case you couldn't tell. About what you feel like, you can read the question and respond.
Will you feel comfortable attending the Avon Garden Club installation of officers at Wahoo Grill Private Garden, which is their permanently tinted outdoor space. They can safely seat up to 30 guests in this space. So 13 people have voted of the 23. So 20 have voted, 21, so it's close.
We lost a lot.
Yeah, there's 24, so. Okay, I'm going to end the polling. 21 of the 23 people on have voted. And the results there are the results.
Read them to me.
13 to 8 or 63% to 38%.
Well, we're still mulling this over. We just need to give Wahoo sort of a heads up about what we want to do. The installation's not until May. But Jennifer, who's out of town now, has asked that we sort of try to start working this so we can share with Wahoo. Thanks. This month has been a busy one. Various president's reports have gone in from the club. A couple of award applications were submitted. We've been to a couple of Federation meeting, and I went to the Georgia Conservation Day elected officials meeting yesterday. Unfortunately, it was Passover Day, at the state. So there was not a lot of elected officials online. I don't know if anybody else had the chance to go, but I did send a note to one of our elected officials who's already supportive of a lot of our incentives. So I'm still asking folks to be on the same committees and lunch committee that you were on this year that didn't happen, most likely. If you've got any conflicts or changes, please let me know. We really don't need to, this has to be ready for yearbook publication in the future. You know, we do that early summer, but I'd still like to try to get this one wrapped up. Tabs, Michelle, help me here. Rosemary said she was still collecting tabs. Do you know if y'all have turned those in yet?
I don't know. I dropped a few off at her house last week and I haven't actually spoken to her, but I think she knows that they're supposed to be over
She knows,
there.
so that deadline is coming up quickly in the next week or so. So if you have tabs and can drop them off at Rosemary's, it's at 3201 Majestic Circle, and just drop them off on her carport. She has a table at the back. You can do that. That's about all for me. Did any members have any more announcements, comments, concerns? Unmute yourself and speak up, because Frank and I are leaning on each other, which we shouldn't be doing. You see any, Frank?
Oh, no.
I got one.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to thank the Garden Club. This is Kathy Dupre. Thank the Garden Club for the nice Get Well card. And and somebody else needs to be chair of the Environmental Committee. Thanks. I think I've said that before.
Yeah, it was a good year not to have a full-time chair, but Kathy has been wonderful. She's already lined up people for environmental hints for the upcoming year. So that's huge. That's huge. Anybody else? I don't see anybody. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you. And everyone go outside and enjoy this incredibly beautiful day. And we'll be seeing you and talking to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks.
So Frank,
Hey, Kathy.
I'm not going to turn on the video. That's for damn sure.
How are you feeling?
Oh my God. Anyway, so I only came in as Michelle was asking something about getting people signed up for things. So I'll take a look at the program later when you've got it on the website.
Well, and I sent you a text or
little chat.
Yeah, it doesn't appear with that. She didn't address your question, so we may want to just send them to the commissioner, you know, to see what's well.
So at this point, I've written to the mayor, the board of, the commissioners, city manager, assistant city manager. There's been multiple communications with them about this path, including documenting that 75 people use the path on any given weekend day, and invited them all to come over and walk on the path.
Yeah, Kathy Kingsborough is here. So didn't you have some ideas about that path? What was it?
Kathy, did anybody mention to you that part of the problem with that path is, I know it goes through the Berkeley Park Bird Sanctuary, that the county is trying to do some
No, this is different.
Stormwater.
Yeah, this is different. This is the one from our house up onto Berkeley.
Over to Berkeley.
Yeah. I just didn't know if that was impacted by that or not.
Well, I got varying responses from the commissioners, like, oh, I'll come over and walk there and see what it's like. And then, one of the people who usually says ditto said ditto. So,
well, I mean, it backs
so the
up
latest,
Jonathan's backyard practically.
Indeed, but we've been talking to him about that for 8 years. But the latest response, the BOMC voted to put gravel on the path. So we don't know if that's going to be the crusher rock, like what's around the lake, or if it's really going to be just flat out gravel. I don't know, that'd be very easy for people with strollers and bikes, but they finally at least responded.
Yeah.
And if it washes all into our garden, I don't know.
Well, that's what my concern is, because of the elevation and the topography of that path, and with all the groups that are on it.
I had asked for asphalt. Just like the Berkeley path is asphalt, and it's held up quite well. And if they just did asphalt, they wouldn't have to like supposedly come back in and undo, I don't know what.
The bridle paths throughout the city are all, they come back and remulch those. They're ground wood chips.
Yeah.
But they have side containings. I mean, they're pretty much contained. Yours, you would have to build some sort of holders on each side.
Yeah. And this has been city green space for more than 20 years. And the only people who maintain it are us and the Geigers.
Right.
And the city's never come over and even mowed or anything.
Well, it sounds like that you've gotten some response to them, and as we know, just the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So I'm hate that you have to do this, but this was not something that was discussed with that.
Yeah.
And I see Bev still on, and Penny. Hey, Penny, how are you? You're muted, Penny.
Yep, I was just listening to what Kathy was talking about. I didn't realize, I know there'd been a problem with that path before. But, I don't know. It's hard to get the city to pay attention, I think, to, things like that. So.
And Bev has done a great job. Going back to our speaker, Bev's side driveway, that's an impervious driveway.
Well, the city insisted on it. So I can't take all the credit, but it works really well. So we don't use it as much now that we're down to one car. But still, it's nice to have, for people to come when they come visit, when family comes and visits. But yeah, I wish I could do something like she was talking about with my front yard, which is a disaster. But it's a big front yard, and I don't know what that would cost to have that turned into some sort of landscaped rain garden. I think it would be beautiful. But
I have someone at my door. Penny, I want to ask you a question. So hang on. I got my painter at the front door.
I was very interested in asking her what the cost of that project was.
Yeah, I don't even want to know.
Yeah.
Very tempting.
I would think. Yeah.
But sounds amazing.
Yeah. But they could save money. I had a retaining wall that was knocked over by the running water in my backyard. So I had to replace it for $5,000. So, maybe had I done something beforehand, I would have prevented that. So Kathy's back, Penny.
Just the amount of water I spend a month on watering plants, it might help.
Oh, I know. Penny, your Verge garden is so wonderful. I'm sure that somebody else is going to mention this, but before we put your name on the list, I just wanted to get your permission.
But I was mad about listening to what the parameters were on that list for Earth. I water city water with it is the bad thing.
I don't, she didn't mention, I'll send you a copy of her email and you can look at it. She really didn't mention parameters such as that.
Okay. I thought it was Earthkeeper.
Yeah.
Something.
This is for the Earth Day.
The tour.
Yeah. And it's so visible and so, it's a great example. So before I put your name on the list, I just wanted to make sure you were okay with that. I got to go open another door.
Okay. Bye, y'all. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Can we put it on, Penny? Can we put you on the list?
Sure.
The tour?
Hopefully it'll look good by then.
Oh, I'm sure it will. It looks beautiful. All right. Thank you.
Bye, Bev.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye, Frank. Thanks again.
Bye, Bev. Bye.
Oh, Frank,
Yes.
hold on just a minute. I counted 27 people.
Yeah, I wasn't really watching those numbers yet. So you said 27. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
run
what
that
I'll
report.
do, I always type this up. I'm just going to type up the list of everybody that I saw on there.
Okay.
Taking off, of course, the 3 people that were involved with the presentation.
Correct.
And then you can look it over and compare it with yours and see if that
Okay.
looks like.
Sure,
okay?
I'll do that. Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Okay, sure.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.